So my name's Karen Mumford. I'm the director of the Office of Small Business Programs at the Defense Intelligence Agency. I will give you a heads up. Michelle asked us to come here today and talk about the good, the bad, the ugly. I will let you know.
Don't look at me.
I didn't, Diane. I'm trying not to look your way. But we are here to kind of give you the ground truth, what we see. We titled this Intro to DIA, but quite honestly, it's not going to be Intro to DIA. We want this to be lots of communication back and forth. We want to hear from you guys, whether you're brand new to our agency or you got a ton of issues with us. We want to hear this stuff because that's the only way that we can really help out. So I'm very fortunate that today we have Mr. BJ Quigley. He is our head of contracting. He's also a good guy and he's on our side. So that's a great thing. Feel free to ask us lots of questions. I also have Natalie Yacob-Pugh. She is in our office, maybe just for a short time, but I am taking full advantage of her knowledge and her skills, and she is going to get us kicked off on the slides. I will tell you, don't hesitate to interrupt us as we're talking. I feel like the communication back and forth does a lot more than you guys just hearing us talk. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Natalie.
Okay, and for me, so just so you guys know, the slide deck that you guys have access to the slide deck, number one. Number two, this is just a real introductory so that for those of you that have never worked with DIA, you understand kind of what we buy, how we buy, where we buy it. That's just the high level overview. We do go into a much deeper briefing, which is a more intimate situation where we have no more than 35 vendors. It is 75% of our office attends, and it's all virtually done right now. And we are looking to host those again in the future. We do, in respect for the contracts office and the support that we have to provide for them, we stop the briefing in July so that in August and September, we can focus on the acquisition stuff that we need to do to ensure that we reach our goals for the end of the year. So without further ado, gonna get into it. So this is the agenda for just the slides, okay? And then we're gonna get into the Q&A and the future stuff here in the end. But so basically understanding what DIA does is huge. So our mission, the DIA mission, is to provide intelligence on foreign militaries to prevent and decisively win wars. Plain and simple. Well, how does SBP fit in that? How does small business fit in that? Well, we advise DIA on all matters relating to small business programs and provide small business maximum practicable opportunities to participate in the contracting process both as a prime and subcontracting. And I will tell you, our agency is probably one of the most friendliest when it comes to working with small businesses in either of those capacities. And we do a really great job at meeting our goals. So what do we buy? You guys are here, you want to know what we buy. We do a lot of services: manpower, IT supplies, hardware, software, cybersecurity, AI, ML, network, system engineering, intelligence collections, analytical research, linguistic services, testing and evaluation, program management, business systems, acquisition and finance, logistics management, facilities engineering, security, and then there's so much more. That's just the surface. And I would say those are probably all done through our top 10 NAICS codes. That's where we pull this data from. So what are our roles and responsibility as an office? So we're an advocate, right? First and foremost, we're an advocate for the small business community, and we include, so here's where we need your help. So I can only advocate for you guys and for small businesses and to make things socioeconomic set-asides, such as a HUBZone set-aside. I can only advocate for you when you guys respond to the market research. Okay, let me be first and foremost, because it says right there, are included in the market research. Not only do we ensure that you guys are included, we want to see that you guys responded. If there's an RFI, an RFQ, or an RFP that are draft, whatever the case may be, we need to see that you responded. We also look at the historical data, if it's a follow-on effort, to see what small business was doing. And then we also look at what the market segment has to offer. I mentioned we provide acquisition support to the contracting office, so we review every single action that is $10,000 or more. That's a lot of actions. It's a lot of money going through. So, and we do have input on that. And we do push back. So you guys understand, we do push back. And we have a requirement right now that I have pushed back. We'll talk about a little bit later today. I've pushed back to see if there's any socioeconomic capabilities for it.
So Natalie, could you explain a little bit about what you mean when you say you push back?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, Diane. Perfect example, we have an acquisition package that's submitted to us. For those of you that are not in the DoD side of the contracting, we have a form that's required in every contract acquisition package called the DD 2579. It's a small business record, and they have to give us a package. So the form is filled out by the contracting officer. It's the intentions of the acquisition going forward. It talks about subcontracting opportunities. Attached to that form is the final market research report, any statements of work, PWS, SUE, specs sheet, or we do a SOR, SOR, statement of requirements. And then also, if applicable, an acquisition plan. And the acquisition plan is usually draft. And then we have, if there's a J&A, any potential J&As or DNFs that may be associated.
So,
Yes, I'm going to go there. So J&A means justification for other than full and open competition or exception to fair opportunity, if you're doing a sole source under an IDIQ, or if you're limiting sources under the federal supply schedules. Okay, so any of those where we're going to deviate from. And let me be clear, I'm not talking about small business set-asides. Small business set-asides do not have to go through that requirement. Okay? Then you have what's known as a determination and finding. It's basically the contracting officer's determination and their finding on if they're deviating from something. And those are few and far between when we need them. For you guys, it would be more of like if we were in a consolidation or a bundling situation.
but I think that what we're trying to get at is we're involved in that acquisition process.
Yes.
We have a very collaborative relationship. Even though BJ's on the other side, we actually get along when it comes to contracting and small business.
What I'm trying to get to is that you actually raise your hand and say, why are you bringing me this and there's no small business content? I cannot approve it.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the great thing about the relationship. Well, there you go. So the great thing about the relationship we have is I think Karen and her team are realistic, right? So we know that if they're pushing back on something, there's a legitimate reason why that's happening. So obviously our folks will listen. And in a lot of cases, right, there's an adversarial relationship between the small business office and contracting. I know, shocker, right? But for us, that's not the case. So we are very collaborative. And there are situations, right, where the team will put their foot down. And then for us, on the contracting side, it's the contracting officers and the specialists that need to relook at it. And again, if there's evidence here, if we've got market research or we've got responses that you all have put in, then we got to reconsider it.
When the opportunity, the door opens for you to insert some small businesses, and that's why it's important
Absolutely.
everybody in this room that's small is connected with you so you're aware.
Yes, because during the market research phase, when we hear from industry, that is a time that we can make changes to requirements. We have talked to many small businesses that they have heartburn with how we're doing past performance. You say I have to have similar scope and size of a $50 million contract in 3 of those. Come on, that's not realistic. You guys are more likely to see that before I am because we don't necessarily see all the RFIs before they're put out there. But we start that relationship. And we are not trying to set it up for any particular socioeconomic category or any particular business. We're looking at it from a realistic standpoint. How can we get the best competition? Because at the end of the day, we're looking at what is best for our mission. We're always thinking mission first. So I think it's very important to realize there's a collaborative relationship, and that's somewhat unusual.
If we're back to the RFIs and source SOTs, it should be that an agency should be able to discern whether small businesses have the capability within about maybe 3 or 4 pages of response back to the agencies. But lately, I guess, and I say lately, probably in the past, 5 years or so, when small business, well, just industries replying to source of SOT, it sometimes is tantamount to almost submitting a proposal. And
So let us know when that's happening. We are not trying to make RFIs a full-blown proposal. It's for us to get a sense of what can you do? Can you do this requirement? Can you show us you've got the capabilities? But remember, when you're responding to RFIs, it's not just you guys as the prime, it's you and your teammates. So make sure you include your teammates when you're responding to the RFIs.
Is your contract information, your contract award publicly available?
It depends.
So there's no way to easily search through something and see who has an 8A contract that's about to expire?
So
How, like, I guess one of the questions I would love to see is, just even in doing business with you as such, like, are there contracts that are veteran disabled? Like, how many contracts do you have that are socioeconomic set-asides, which means they're very highly likely to be recompeted as a socioeconomic set-aside? Because there's other agencies I work for, and they like never ever do a socioeconomic set-aside because they say it's too risky for mission and it's scary, and so like they never ever do it. But it's also easier to line up and start preparing if you're qualified in that area or putting a team together versus looking at it more broadly.
So
I would love to see like this, these are the 3 HUBZone active contracts, they expire, blah, blah, or these are the.
So that's where we're talking about the good, the bad, the ugly. So the good is DIA is meeting all of our goals to include HUBZone. We're one of few agencies that actually meet the goal. But the bad or the ugly side to that, it's not because we're doing HUBZone set-asides. It's because it's happening through NASA soup with IT purchases. That seems to be the big area. Where else?
So we do have an IDIQ that was a HUBZone set aside called FLAIRS. It's a facilities, logistics, administrative, security, executive kind of IDIQ. It is a 10-year vehicle, and right now we have 7 primes on that one, 7 HUBZone primes. I can tell you that I am pushing back. I'm gently trying to, because like I said, information is only as good as it's presented, right, to us. And we do insert, as Diane said, we do insert, like, you know what? Actually, we know for a fact there's 5 other companies that could easily meet this requirement. Have you thought about doing this? So when we talk about the 2 opportunities later, there are 2 opportunities that I have requested the contracting officer go back and look at. And I have asked them to post an RFI out requesting only socioeconomic responses back for 2 socioeconomic categories. One of them is HUBZone. The other one is a service disabled veteran-owned. But when I came into this office, when I came to work for Karen did give me a charge. She said, okay, NASA soup aside, I want you to find requirements that we can start putting as socioeconomic set-asides. And I'm going to tote myself right now for a minute. I have done 5. I have literally 5, and I have looked where it has made sense, and we are anticipating the increase in the SDB category. So we expect to see the use of 8A sole source as a direct award more prevalent for some things. But I also then still have other goals I still have to meet.
So here's the thing also. Even though the SDB goal is changing per regulation from 5% to 11% over the next 6 years, I have no intent of using 8A direct awards as the only way for us to do that. So I just want to put that out there. Now, there's times where it makes sense to use 8A, and we'll go that route. But that's not what our intent is. That's not where we're headed. I will also say in FY15, DIA was under 1% for HUBZone. We are now reaching 5%. That's unheard of. And we're looking for those opportunities, but that's where we need industry's help. We need you guys to tell us if the RFIs are asking for too much information. Here's a question I have for you. If we release an RFI as a small business set-aside, will the HUBZone community respond to it? Or does the RFI have to go out to HUBZone in order for you guys to respond? Because that makes a huge difference. So let me ask this. How many of you respond to small business RFIs? Okay. Okay, hands down. Are you more likely to respond if it's a HUBZone? Okay.
I
Okay.
also just want to throw a bomb out there by saying I don't think it's good for, I think it defeats the purpose of the HUBZone when agencies buy products and they don't focus on services, because HUBZone businesses largely are about hiring people and providing jobs, and product companies in general keep their staff size small, and it is like the opposite of the actual intention of the HUBZone program. So when you are doing a set aside and trying to reach your HUBZone numbers, people should actually think about the fact that you are growing a community and trying to hire services and not just simply meet a goal. And I'm going to throw like the State Department, they're doing like a big HUBZone, you know, like that's how they want to buy their products. But we're not in the business of getting some tiny margin and being a pass-through, right? We're in the business of training people in information technology and providing them a path and continuing their education and continuing their refinement with in-house mentoring. And so it, yeah, I think it's just kind of crap when the main way people are meeting it is by buying product, and those companies are like the shadiest front company. I mean, I'm just throwing, again, crap out, but like, you know, they're just a front. And because a lot of times you don't even have the credit to, so you're just a complete front backed by some really big company.
So I will,
So Karen, could I suggest that if you're trying to penetrate maybe and get more response to your RFIs, that you work with HUBZone Council, because I can tell you that Michelle does an extraordinarily good idea of doing email blasts
yep.
and putting things on social media daily.
Mhm.
I think that this is a wonderful way to reach out to the HUBZone community. I partnered with the council, and we did a BAE Systems HUBZone Connection event, and we had to turn away people. We had so many HUBZones that wanted to reach our company. It was amazing. So I think that a partnership with the council will really help.
So they said that they were creating a separate coalition for the Intel side, and we talked to them earlier this morning about getting to be part of that group. So, yeah. So, sorry, didn't mean to take
No
over.
worries. So you guys have clearly had time to read the slides. Slide now. So we are responsive. We do industry outreach. That's what we're doing right now. And I mentioned our intro to small business, our intro to DIA for small business briefing that we do. We also are responsible for adhering to SBA's rules and regulations under the 8A Business Development Program. We do manage and we do participate in the DoD's Mentor Protege Program. DIA currently has 4 active agreements. We'll talk about our solicitation here in a few minutes. We are looking to solicit more mentors and proteges coming up. Yes, yeah, no, big deal.
This is the one where the prime gets the money.
Yes.
Yeah. DoD is, so for those of you that don't know, one big difference between SBA and DoD's Mentor Protege Program, DoD Primes, the DoD Mentor, is reimbursed for things that they do to help the protege build and develop. And then, of course, we ensure the usage of small businesses in accordance with the negotiated subcontracting plans for ones that we negotiate. I can't do anything on a CSP or a comprehensive plan because that is not negotiated through us. That is negotiated with the DoD and DCMA. So you want to know where you find our opportunities, right? Like, where do you find these things? Where are these opportunities posted? Formerly known as FedBizOps or Beta SAM. We post onto sam.gov. And there's 2 ways to find us. And I'm going to put a third way out here. But the easiest way to find us is by using that code, the 97DL Delta Lima. For some reason, it pulls up better than just looking for the Defense Intelligence Agency or the Virginia Contracting Activity, because we do use the Virginia Contracting Activity as our contracting vehicle. And you'll see that kind of later. Other points of entry, GSA, whether it's the FSS or the IDIQs, OASIS, STARS, any of the category management ones that they're having out there now for schedules, Advantage and eBuy. NASA SOUP, So if you are an IT firm and you provide hardware software, we're going to go to NASA Soup. First and foremost, we will go to NASA Soup for almost all of our hardware software buys, where it makes sense and where we don't have to, where we're not required to go somewhere else, because there are some other requirements. And lastly, our classified procurements, we have a lot of those. Those are going to be posted on either the NSA's ARC or the NRO ACE. Primarily, it's going to be the NSA. It's a little more user-friendly on our side, but from this council and from being here, I hear where it may not be as user-friendly in the NRO's system might be a little bit easier. So,
Is that where it's classified work, or there's actually a classified section?
both. It can be both. It just depends on it depends.
Because most of the time it's an unclassified RFP, right? It's pretty rare that you're having a RFP with a
No, we have
classified response.
no, we have a lot of classified responses. Yeah, we
Yeah,
have
they
two
might-
divisions.
That's very
Well-
hard for small business, by the way, to write classified responses, because it really requires you to work in your partner's SCIF facility, so the burden is much higher.
And some of it too is, it's just above unclassified, so it might not necessarily be classified, but it might be FOUO stuff,
Yeah, yeah.
so similar.
Okay, that's what I, okay.
And then,
Natalie, do you
Yeah.
ever, solicitations that are on the ARC, do you ever, kind of put a notice, like in Sam's, saying, hey, you know, there is this classified, solicitation on the ARC, and if you have access to it, you can access the ARC to see it.
BJ?
So
you're
yeah,
right.
I feel like there's, so that is feedback that we've heard in other meetings. So I think that, I don't know that we're doing that as a practice, as a standard, but that is something that I think we need to obviously make available, because otherwise, if folks aren't prompted, you guys may not know that it's there. So that is something that we're going to need to start implementing.
so I will tell you, it's contracting officer specific as well,
Yeah.
because when I was in the contracting office, I would always put the unclassified shell out on sam.gov, and then I would either tell the vendors in section L or M, this is where you go get the classified documents. If there is a classified statement of work, more than likely there's going to be expected to be a classified response. And so when I was that, but that's me, right? So that's why I said it's dependent upon the contracting officer and what they want to do. That's what I did.
But I do think that the environment is changing.
Yeah.
And I think BJ's going to talk about it later, but since someone brought it up, I think you're going to start seeing more requirements out on the NSA ARC. Is there any talk about using the NRO ACE or?
So not really. I think at this point, and this is in the slide deck for those of you that have already kind of looked through it, is based on just our own independent information that we've gotten, obviously being an intel agency. There's a lot of stuff that our adversaries are collecting on what we're putting out on sam.gov. So there's more of an emphasis on figuring out ways to be restrictive where we need to be, but also, again, it's a balance, right? Because we want to make sure that we're reaching, the vendor community at all levels and being able to be innovative and all that stuff too. So this is where the partnership is really going to be key in making sure that we're balancing both of them and letting everybody know, when there's requirements out there that could potentially be, offered to various, set-asides or other folks that can perform. But the key part here, right, is just making sure that you are aware that a lot of our requirements are going to start to go on the NSA ARC, more so than the ACE, at least based on the preliminary conversations.
So there's a lot of talk right now on barriers. And one of the barriers to entry for DIA is, in most cases, and I say most because there are the exceptions, the extreme exceptions, you are required to have a top secret facility clearance. And that's just because of the nature of what we do. While the information in the actual contract may be unclassified, the work you may be doing may be classified. And if you're in our facilities, then you're going to definitely need to have a clearance. So first and foremost, the requirement to have a TS facility clearance is you have to have a requirement. You have to have, in order to have access to the information. Also, proposed personnel must be cleared or clearable to the TS-SCI level, and that includes a counterintelligence polygraph. Yes, we do polygraph our contractors. The facility clearance process does require key management personnel to get the personal security clearances. And then this includes a senior management official, an FSO, facility security officer, and an insider threat program security officer as well. Access to a SCIF may be required in some circumstances, but not all. It just depends on the requirement itself. And please note that DIA we do not sponsor facility clearances. We are exploring opportunities with some of our primes to be able to help small businesses get those TS facility clearances. I know that I can think of four large primes right now that I know for a fact that do it, that are DIA. Booz Allen is one of them. Diane, do you guys do that? Nope, I didn't think so. SOCI International is one for us.
So I would recommend, if you don't have the top secret facility clearance, we held a small business industry day back in June, July timeframe. And we brought in our prime contractors to talk about this. And there are some really good key takeaways from that. If you go out to sam.gov and look at that, we put all of that in our FAQs. And the reason I'm saying that is by asking a prime to put you in for it, it means that you have to have a relationship with them and there has to be a mission need. It's not that they don't want to get you cleared, but we've got to tie it to the mission. There's got to be a real need for it. So I hear from industry a lot, I've been trying to get my top secret facility clearance, it's just not working. And the response I have is you're going to have to figure out how to sell your capabilities to companies so that they want to bring you onto the team. And it's not that they're being,
You also need to underscore the expense. There is an associated expense with this
okay.
that is oftentimes overlooked. So a lot of smalls come to us that don't have a relationship and, want to talk to us about clearances. And there has to be a compelling reason, to your point.
Right.
But more importantly, we don't even know these companies, and it's expensive. That's not to say that if we have a current supplier that we don't go through this gyration if it merits it.
Right.
But just to call up and say, hey, how about hooking me up? That just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We will do it if for the reasons that you said, Carson, but for the reasons that you indicated.
And to that SAM announcement, that industry day that we had for small businesses, please do explore, because that was one of the questions that was asked, was how do I as a small get a facility clearance? And it talks about that relationship, and this was from a prime contractor's perspective on, and these were people that do this. So
Right. So the industry day, we brought in the primes from our Dory vehicle. Dory stands for?
it's Dory 2. The 2 is not because it's the second iteration. It's actually because there's 2 E's. It stands for Data Science Operations Requirements Exploitation and Engineering.
And the reason that we focused on that vehicle is we've noticed there aren't a lot of small businesses in our R&D world. So we put some hefty subcontracting goals on that vehicle with the intent to increase small business participation. We're really looking there. So if you support R&D, that's the vehicle that you really want to look at.
So it's full and open?
That vehicle was a full and open competition that was competed. And it was awarded in FY20, in February of FY20. So 2020. It's a 5-year vehicle.
It was the prime?
There are 7 primes.
Okay.
There's 7 primes. It's almost a $1 billion ANAS services. There you go. It's an ANAS service vehicle. It's almost $1 billion vehicle. I think it's 990 million.
But I just want to reiterate, we know there are not a lot of smalls. We want the innovation that you guys bring. That's a good opportunity to get your foot in the door, but you have to sell your capabilities to a company and help them fill a gap.
And I'm going to deviate for a second. So, Dory. The reason why we put the lofty goals in is when we go to recompete this in a few years, we want to be able to put a small business track in there because we know you guys can do the work. We know you guys are capable of doing the work. We just need to get the goals down. We need to see the companies that can do it and figure out what the plan will be going forward and what our acquisition strategy is for Dory 3 or whatever the next iteration of it is. So that's also, just so you guys understand, that's also one way that things do get put is by looking at the historicals, whether it was a full and open or a small business, that we do look at that.
Can you rattle off his crimes, sir?
We can easily send that to him.
yeah.
I'd feel bad if we missed any. So.
Yeah. There's, and I would feel very bad if I missed it. But in that industry day announcement, it actually has all the contact information for our 4 biggest IDIQs and how to get a hold. And then what we do ask you to do is email us, and we will get you the actual contact information for those
So
primes.
if I may,
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about those IDIQs, because remember, when we did them as primes, we have to go in with a very long list, as you know, you demand it, of our teammates.
Yes, we did.
To provide our teaming agreements. We also have to define what work share we anticipate. Now, we have to do this blind because we don't know what the tasks are going to look like. So our approach is typically soup to nuts, right? We take a look at the work scope and we define, okay, we've got all these companies. So we're locked in. We have our team at that time, and we honor our agreements, because if we don't, then I get a call from certain offices, and they've gotten a complaint from a small business that's on our team, and they haven't gotten any work, but I've given another small business work that wasn't on the team. So we have to be careful with our messaging, right?
So I told you guys we talk about the mentor protege program. How many, and this is the DoD's version, this is not SBA's, it's not a joint venture. The contract is actually with the mentor, not the mentor and the protege. How many of you have even heard of the mentor protege and want to know, like, and are actively like looking and seeking mentors? Okay, so I got 1. All right, so for anybody else that's in here, or maybe you're seeking proteges, I don't know, maybe there's people in here seeking proteges as well. So we do participate in it, and the requirements are outlined in Appendix I of the DFARS. It's in the very, very back. Yes, after 30 years, it's still a pilot program. That's not going to change. But in FY20, it was reapproved for use. And DoD has been finalizing instructions for us agencies on what they expect us to see. One of the use of, actually, I can tote this. So if you guys have not heard of Project Spectrum and you are not signed up for Project Spectrum, I'm going to tell you, you need to be signed up for Project Spectrum. It's an amazing resource that's going to help you with that CMMC certification process. I don't have it on here on the slides, but we can send you the link if you shoot us an email. We have contact information in the back. But the number of agreements that we award depends on a lot. It's based on fiscal funding constraints. Not every year do we get the funding that we would like. The number of proposals and the quality of the proposals that we receive. And then the availability of resources. Just so you know, she and I, 50% of the office. 50%. So we would love nothing more than to award 100 MPP agreements. It's just not feasible for us. At our max, we had 9 agreements. We did 9 agreements, and let me explain this to you. Little DIA had 9 agreements. We had the second largest number of agreements, including with the services. We outnumbered the services. So we are very mentor-protege friendly. We want to bring small businesses in. We see the benefit of this program. That's why we continue to participate in it and why we really actively solicit for this, even in times when we don't have a solicitation out, which you guys are going to ask me when that's going to drop. My lofty goal is by 30 September. She'll tell you it's more like October. So, and if you want to get a head start, please go out to the DoD Small Business page. There's a Mentor Protege page. For people that are interested in becoming mentors, you have to go through the DoD to get approval. There's a process for that. If you are thinking about it, look, and you're a small business and you want to be a protege because you want to develop, go look at who you're currently doing business with and who you have great relationships with to help enhance you, and that will enhance you, and that will work with you to develop. Because this program is a marriage. It's a relationship, and it is all about the relationship. Because what you put in as a company is what you get out. And yeah, and then Needopedia, for those of you that don't know, we have a broad agency announcement. We do tie the requirements back because there is our Needopedia is actually shows out where our capabilities and that we're looking for and solutions that we need.
Do you acknowledge or look at also the SBA Mentor Protege program and the relationships? Or if we're already under that program, would we have to go under and do a second one to do the DIA Mentor Protege?
Yes, so the DODs and SBAs are two totally separate entities. So regardless of what your SBA situation is, you still have to go through the DoD because the DoDs is significantly different. SBAs, if I'm not mistaken, SBA does an OT for theirs, like an actual agreement. We do an actual cost reimbursement contract. Like it is a FAR-based contract for us. So, well, in this case, a DFARS-based contract. Okay. I'm pressing the big green button and it's not wanting to work. Okay, this turns over to BJ.
All righty.
Do you want, it's the big green one,
The big green button.
big green button.
Fantastic. Well, there's a big green button and a firework. Which one is it?
The
The
big green
one.
button.
All right, fair enough. So I know that we're going down on time here, so we'll kind of breeze through some of this stuff. The key parts here, right, is just understanding and talking about the Virginia contracting activity, which is also, it's the DIA contracting activity. So because of our mission, we have to use, obviously, a different name, at least to somewhat conceal the identity of some of the contracts that we're soliciting. So again, as Natalie talked about, being able to search on both is obviously helpful to make sure that you've captured everything that's out there that we're actively soliciting. Here are the key parts of the mission. Obviously, we're trying to provide acquisition excellence or world-class support to our mission, tip of the spear folks that are out there. So there's 4 different goals we have in developing the workforce, achieving excellence in contracting, fostering strong program management, and also delivering timely and effective solutions to our customers. So there's a couple of things that a couple initiatives we're working on that obviously will directly impact you guys. Additionally, we've got some somewhat breaking news that we can share at the end of this that's not on the slide deck that we'll get to here in another slide or two. Alrighty, so our roles and responsibilities. So the key part here is making sure that our contracting professionals are properly trained, ensuring compliance with federal regulations. We had a program management review a few years ago that pointed out more than one thing that we obviously needed to work on as a contracting shop. So we're in the process of fixing all those things. These interactions that we have with you all it doesn't necessarily impact us internally, but as a external thing, we want to make sure that we're allowing maximum participation from industry, and that also goes to some of our other goals up here in terms of making sure we've got an active industrial base that can provide solutions to our requirements and the problems that we have. And that's kind of the key part here, right, is connecting problems and money with solutions. So that's one of the key things we have is whenever we meet with our mission partners, it's all about trying to figure out, okay, what's your problem? What's the best way that we can structure a contract that makes sense to help resolve that problem? In many cases, right, we need your feedback to make sure we're capturing your perspective on that as well. And then the few bullets down here at the end, helping the agency meet or exceed small business goals and ensuring the proper use of the government purchase card. Again, getting towards that efficient part of contracting. Future movement. So again, giving some perspective in terms of what we're looking at. I think DoD-wide, really across the entire contracting community, everyone's trying to figure out ways to get faster, right? For us, the internal slogan that I always tell our folks is we want to contract at the speed of war. We want to be mobile, we want to be agile, we want to have a bunch of ideas in our head as ways that we can resolve a problem. It's not the traditional firm fixed price contract that the only way to go, we're going to structure it a certain way and that's it. We've got to be flexible. We got to understand the various tools that we've got in the toolbox. We've got a team that's set up called the Contract Innovation Cell that's looking at utilizing non-traditional methods, grants, other transactional authority, some of the BAA stuff that Natalie referred to earlier. Whatever ways that we can provide solutions to get contracts in place as fast as we can, that's what we're looking at. And then the next two basically contradict a lot of that stuff, which is the complex mission that we deal with, right? So being in the intelligence community, we've got to balance the security side of it with the speed part of it. So one of the things we've been trying to do at each of the industry days that we've had, including obviously this one and the small business industry days, is sharing the discussion points about the use of the NSA ARC, our plans to go there. Obviously the feedback that we discussed earlier about doing sort of a companion post on sam.gov so that folks know to go look at the ARC for things that are above unclassified. Again, just based on some of the reports we've got, there's a lot of active collection going on even our unclassified requirements, and we want to mitigate that as much as possible. So it's a balance in making sure that we're getting active participation as well as protecting our own security interests. But we want to make sure that, again, the message is out. This is something that's sort of, at least at this point, kind of a slow transition. We had started it prior to the pandemic, and then obviously because of the efforts that were there and the number of folks that were teleworking, et cetera, we sort of slowed that down, but now we're re-engaging on that part of it. And then the other part down here for some of the folks, just for your awareness, we've also begun, this actually also goes a few years back, in conversations with the NASA SOUP contracting office. We've figured out a method where we can do classified actions off of NASA SOUP. Before we were in the business of, hey, it's classified, let's figure out a way that we can take some of that stuff out and contract for it in an unclassified manner. Well, we figured out ways that we can utilize NASA SOUP on the classified platform as well. So that's something that's a change. It's something that, again, we're trying to, as many of you guys know, if you're familiar with the NASA SOUP vehicle, it's very quick turnaround stuff. And obviously with the classified piece, we don't have to worry about the back and forth and trying to scale it down. We can take the requirement as is, and we've got a workable solution there that we can push forward with. And then the last piece here, again, electronic filing. As many of you guys know, right, the government's kind of slow to move in a lot of cases. We are in the process of getting out of the mentality of old school contract files with the big filing cabinets and the 18 different green or red folders that keep all that stuff in there. Everything's going electronic. What we feel like is that's going to make us, or that's going to give us the ability to move faster than we have historically, because we're not going to have to go through the same scanning elements where everything's got to go in and all that fun stuff. So we're hoping that will, again, help move things quicker, faster, and hopefully you guys will see the benefits of that.
Does that mean no more binders for proposal submission?
That's the hope. That is the hope. Yeah. Yeah. That's the hope. That's the hope, right? Nobody, well, and that would be lovely. Now the hard part, right, is I think, and you guys know this, but the reading comprehension of a hard copy versus an electronic copy is the studies are through the roof, right? Exactly. That's more of what it's for, right? So
We don't want to waste our paper. We want to waste your paper.
Exactly.
We're broke.
There you go. And some of it too, right? I think if we do request binders, we're also going to request an electronic copy as well, so that we can have it for our record. So that may not necessarily impact you. It's the same amount of work. For us on our end, it'll be much easier.
CD-ROMs anymore.
I know.
It's a
How do you even do
real
that?
issue. We had
Secure USB.
access to a CD-ROM. It doesn't work with my
That's right.
CD-ROMs are an old
No
thing.
floppy disk or CD-ROM, no, it doesn't work. So, but yeah, again,
Vintage.
we're working on all that stuff again to hopefully be better, faster, maintaining better records, all that kind of stuff. Alrighty, so two more movements here, and then I'll talk through some of the kind of late breaking news, at least as it relates to our agency, but it'll impact, I'm sure, other DoD components as well. So the high TERP. So we've used this a ton. Again, it's the highest technically rated with a fair and reasonable price. We are using this on many of our IDIQs now. Our Site 3, which is our IT services and contract, as well as our SI 3, which is our analysis contract. We use it a ton in the various task orders that go underneath it. We've had tremendous success with it. It's in many cases, right, everyone talks about the change that goes over time, whether it's a competitive negotiation, with the technical being kind of an important thing, vice the LPTA where price is really the key drivers. And over time, right, in contracting, the pendulum has gone one way or the other. we feel like high terp is a great balance of both. Because we know, and these are for, we'll use this method in situations where we believe we can have a pretty good feel for what the price is going to come in as. And we really want the high technical side, right? So the stuff, we want the innovation, we want the flexibility, there's some risk associated with it, so we want to make sure that that's under control. Typically, we do that by analyzing past performance, et cetera, and the differentiators there. So we've had a lot of success with it. One of the things we've seen, and I've actually talked about this, I don't know if any of you were on either the dialogue group or any of the other industry meetings that I've talked to in the last couple of weeks, but one of the things that we've seen is, in the very beginning of this, everything was great, right? Everyone was, hey, we were the highest technically rated. It basically gives you, in many ways, a fast track to award. And so we started seeing pricing that came in that was competitive, that we could justify as fair and reasonable pretty easily. But as typical, right, industry adjusts, and what we've seen over the last month or so has been folks that have been high on the technical side have started submitting these proposals that are moderately outrageous, if that's a way I can describe it. So just want to make sure, if you guys are involved in this, I've told this to the other vendors as well, so I want to make sure I'm being fair, is that when you're developing your proposal, just because you win the technical side, don't disqualify yourself by submitting a price that we can't determine is fair and reasonable.
Providing ROMs?
In some cases, yeah, it depends. But I think a lot of it is just be realistic in developing the price. And in some cases, if we're...
Yeah, but our realistic is nowhere close.
That's true. That's fair.
It's
That's
like
fair.
you take it and then just slash it
Yeah.
and take it down 35%.
Yeah, understood. But I think the big thing is don't try to milk us with a proposal in terms of just incorporating a bunch of profit in there. And that's what we've seen more recently, is we've been able to kind of pull that stuff out. I see a couple of hands.
Have you considered, I know on the INSCOM side of SIA 3, the cost narratives are really much more intense than on the DIA side, so thank you guys. But they require us to provide justification for our price and our rates and our salaries and all that. And I haven't seen that requirement from you guys. Have you guys considered that? So if somebody does come in and let's say they've got a very highly technical, like a SME and this is the rate that we know the market, it's a very niche market, this is what it's going to take to get this person. But, if you use market survey data, it's not going to
Sure.
substantiate that. However, if you've got a signed LOI or a current person performing and this is what they're making in this location, that would justify that type of premium that you would pay. So that's just a consideration. And I get it. We all play the game of, hey, here's a way to make a little bit more.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, it's not the buck, but that could eliminate some of that if somebody comes in with an outrageous price that's completely unreasonable. It's like, well, how did you get to that price other than marking up your profit,
Absolutely, yeah, and it's a great idea. And I think for situations that we're in where we do have folks that we need to be highly specialized or highly technical, that is something that we've looked at doing. The hope is, just like you talked about, right? We want to balance in terms of, the whole point why we're using high terp is to try to get through this stuff quickly. But certainly, I think in the areas that you're talking about, especially relating to the specialization, that does make a lot of sense to have that extra narrative and the additional research that our folks, again, we're talking about, generic person A, and there may be some additional requirements that are there. So I think that makes a lot of sense. There's another hand, I think, over here. Yes, ma'am.
It was almost a comment, or I was just going to say, I think that's great that you guys are doing that. I think one of the challenges we're all facing, if we're in this cleared world, is the people with CI polys.
Yep.
The salaries are going
Sure. Yeah.
crazy right now.
Yeah.
So being fair and reasonable and realistic is really hard to do and to anticipate these days. And you want to be able to support the mission.
Mhm.
You want to be able to, provide resources.
Plus,
But
with like
there's-
Amazon, so you have Amazon moving in, Microsoft has made this extreme push too, and the rate of clearing new talent remains pretty low, right? So there remains this issue, and I'm not saying the contracting office is gonna resolve it, but like Fort Meade Alliance did a whole big thing about the hiring talent and the pipeline. But one of the issues we see is not a lack of qualified talent, but a lack of ability to clear them. We're never even we have like 3 primes, so we're never able to clear anyone. We're not able to take in like, TS and then get them a CI and have them work on a CCA, but, so the talent pool continues to shrink and the salaries are through the roof for Northern Virginia. So unless you start moving like add an office in St. Louis, right, where people are moving to much cheaper cost of living. But if you remain anchored in Northern Virginia with no ability to work and more remote skip locations, the prices are going to remain outstanding. Especially like Amazon moved in, right, like practically right next to you guys, and then Microsoft thinking with Jedi they're going to win everything, like they've hired everybody. So, you know, everyone's making like $250.
Yep.
Like
Yeah. All,
250, and I want everything. I want all the bonuses. I want like
yeah.
everything.
All valid points, and I think we are taking that under consideration too, right? I think the
I'm
COVID.
sure you have a lot of sympathy for like that.
Well,
That's the talent. Like,
No,
you're
and
looking for.
and they're all valid concerns. And I think from our perspective too, right, we've got folks that are other agencies that are non-IC, IC related can work from home. And what's the price that's going to get somebody out of their house to show up in the office every day? So I think those are all things that are taken under consideration. Those are all things that our folks are looking at. So I think despite some of those factors, right, we got enough data now that we can take a look at those things. And there are the situations you're talking about, right, where we do have a TS that maybe doesn't have a CI poly. There are things that our security folks are looking at as ways to try to prevent that, because it's impacting our mission. And not only is it impacting your ability to provide it, but it's also for us, that's potentially another 6 months while we have an individual that could be TS cleared that can't support whatever we're working as well. So what are the real impacts and what is the risk? We are looking at ways that we can mitigate that also.
And that's why I think the ROM in advance is so helpful, because it allows for that discussion as part of the questions and answers,
Sure.
right? So it's a much fairer baseline to be like, I don't know where you're looking, right? But like, this is our data, and to be able to have those conversations prior to, then awarding it to a company that can't execute.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's fair. Want to hit the last slide and then hit the information here. So AFMAS, this is a requirement that's going to come out for our agency sometime probably in January or February of 22. It will be set aside. We're still working through the specifics of any categories that it's going to be set aside for. That's still going on right now. But we do expect, I think we were talking with some folks earlier about releasing a draft RFI, but this is basically all the acquisition and financial support for DIA. So there's we've got skin in the game because it's going to be the contractors that are going to support our office in the areas that we do. So we want to make sure we get it right. We want to make sure we have the right strategy, that we're engaging with the right folks with good ideas, et cetera. So just want to make sure, again, obviously with the opportunity here, to give you guys a heads up on this requirement that's going to be upcoming from us. Yeah. And then the last news here, so this is something that's kind of hot off the press, as you guys may be encountering this if you've got contracts with other DoD folks. But on Monday, at DIA, we're going to be releasing a form where civilians and contractors are going to have to attest to their vaccination status, right? It's yes, vaccinated, no, not vaccinated, or don't want to respond to it. And then we're working through the specifics on what the next steps will be. It could be like a take-home testing kit. It could be testing on site for those that fall into the other than vaccinated category. So that stuff is going to be upcoming. Obviously, the president's going to announce more information, I think, at 5 o'clock. But at least what we're tracking is the information for us is going to be rolled out on Monday. I think it's going to be similar throughout DoD. We're working through the testing piece of it. Really, as we speak, had a meeting this morning that was talking through the various options, what that would entail. So more to come on it, and obviously I assume there's going to be a bunch of questions. We've got our own questions internally in terms of how we implement it, but just want to let you guys know that for those that have contracts with DI, that's going to be coming out. How we're handling it, or how we're going to handle it, is we're going to issue a global or universal mod that I think it's called the Federal Health Protocol or something along those lines, that's going to be applicable to all DIA contracts. And that's how we're going to at least start it, and then we'll roll out similar to those of you that saw the CARES Act and the COVID stuff that we put out. We're going to do something similar, global mod, and then sort of a FAQs in terms of how we're going to handle it. We do have to slow play a little bit because we have to defer to the defense cost and pricing folks to issue their guidance. We can't sort of go out on a limb without the risk that we'd have to revise all that stuff. So we are going to slow play a little bit until they start releasing it, but wanted to let everybody know that is going to be happening as of Monday. Any questions, concerns? Mm-hmm. What about any other items? I think this is the end of our...
It is.
There you go.
So you guys have this slide deck available to you in the app. I did mention I would talk to you about RFIs. So we do have 2 HUBZone opportunities. One of them is a construction. We're not talking Milcon. It's not Milcon. It's minor minor modification and renovation. It's called our DDoC, DDoC, DDoC. I mentioned earlier that was one that I pushed back on the contracting officer, and I asked for. We'll get it for you. I'll get it for you, and we have the cards in the back with all the information for you guys. But that one, yes, while it is a construction, I did push back and asked for it to go out as an RFI. It'll be a quick turn RFI. We're looking to see what HUBZone can and cannot do. We are also making that one. We are also looking at what service disabled veteran owned can do to see what we can put it as a socioeconomic category. We also have another RFI that'll be coming out. It's another quick turn for linguists. If linguists are in your wheelhouse, we have a small HUBZone that we are potentially looking at utilizing the HUBZone sole source award or making it a HUBZone set aside that we are very interested. Because I told you, I forewarned you all. She told me when I took the job, I got to find opportunities. So this is our way of being able to help, because just making something a small business set aside doesn't always mean that you're going to meet your socioeconomic goals, and we know that.
RFI put out already?
Which one?
The linguist.
No, it has not been. It will be. I would think fairly soon. They have a quick turn on it. The award is looking at either first quarter or second quarter.
And it would probably come out on the NSAR, given
Yes.
the office
Yeah.
that it's coming from.
Yeah, a lot of it
Yeah.
too, right? It's going to with stuff that's going on in world events. The linguist stuff is a huge deal for us, and the plus up there. So anybody with the ability to find linguists, it's going to be a critical skill for us and for other folks as well. But that's something that's going to come out ASAP.
Yeah.
And then I hate to say this, but it's 2:00, and I know the roundtables
Yep.
are starting.
Yeah. So we want to keep the discussion going because we know that you guys came here to also talk to us and tell us some of your challenges. So we have signed up for a roundtable starting at 2:20. We are willing, the three of us are going to sit down and you guys can ask us anything. It's a continuation of this discussion. And we really want to continue the discussion because we do know that there are challenges that each and every one of you are facing in this room. And we are acutely aware that one of the challenges with DIA is facility clearances and what the barriers are, but then there may be other things like clearing your personnel through our security process. So we want to continue the conversation with respect to the, I believe it's the Department of Education that's following us in this room. We are going to move our conversation, and we would like to invite all of you to continue this in the roundtable. So, with that,
All right.
thank you so much.
Thank you.